Hello and welcome back to another episode of leaguE Talk, the podcast all about management, coaching, performance and all things League of Legends. My name is AJ, and on today's podcast we have Excel's coach who is taking the EU Masters by storm at the moment. So Tim, Kiro, thank you so much, welcome, and I really appreciate your time giving it over to the podcast. Why don't you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. My name's Tim. I'm actually from NA. Where to start? I used to be an analyst for Cloud9, then I became the head coach for EchoFox, and then I was Team leaguE Academy's head coach, and then this year I came over and I became Excel UK's head coach.
Amazing. And so, starting on Cloud9, how did you sort of get your start there? Because obviously that's like quite a prestigious org to just sort of go straight into, you know?
So I was working mostly with college stuff, and then I had a friend who was I had a few friends who were working behind the scenes on the team, and then the head coach at the time was a friend of mine. We met online, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for an analyst to do this kind of work. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So that's how I got my start.
Amazing. And this is a question that I find really interesting for all coaches and all sort of minds in League of Legends, because my background is a traditional sports coach. I coach tennis and have done for years and years, but when I want to learn how to coach tennis, I go into the job and I go and find a local club or something like that, and then go and get qualified. So I go through what's called the LTA, and they qualify you, right? So my interesting question, I'm sure you can see where this is going, is how do you get this knowledge? Because it's not an easy thing to just sort of click your fingers. It's like hundreds of hours of VOD reviews, or there's no qualifications,
Yeah.
you know?
It's still really abstract, like how to be like a good league coach, I guess. I did take some stuff, like I used to coach volleyball and badminton too. So I used to be, I was into traditional sports before that, and then before I even was an analyst, I was pretty high rank, so I had decent game knowledge at a baseline level, I would say. I would honestly say it's like a huge learning experience. So once you join your first team, you're just learning.
Yeah.
So Cloud9, I learned a lot. Even EchoFox, like once I got there, like because Cloud9 was remote, so I didn't learn too much. But once I joined EchoFox and I just started talking with the team, you know, and it was just a really humbling experience. You know, they just tell you like this is how the game is actually played.
Yeah.
All these little things, and then you just pick it up, and then after EchoFox and team after my first couple splits at EchoFox, that's when I knew like I was ready to like really like teach a team and like how to make them improve. And I'm still learning on the job, right? Like I'm still getting better at stuff. Like Team leaguE, the academy team, it was a group of like bunch of fresh rookies, so I had to go really in depth with like how I wanted to play the game, like all these little steps and stuff like that. Whereas in Excel UK, like first off, the EU players are much better, like baseline level skill. They're just much better.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Noticeably
much
so,
better.
To the point where you're like, this is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Like so much better. Like at the academy / challenger level, you know.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, right? Like, how many ERL leagues are there? There's like 13 leagues. And each league has like 8 teams. So that's like what, like 100 teams or something. Like 90 to 100. Oh, sorry. At least 60. At least 60. I'm just gonna throw out a number. At least 60 teams, and most of them are pretty good. You know, they have like a few challenger players, a few grandmaster, and then you have NA academy teams which only have challenger players, and the majority of teams are just recycled talent anyways, you know. Like a large portion. There's not a lot of rookies anymore. My team, I decided to like I wanted full rookies for mine, so I rather wanted to do that.
Yeah, and I guess there's an element of that when you're using sort of recycled talent, I guess, and from my experience in traditional sports as well, is once these people have valued themselves to a higher extent, you get this sort of veteran status, and all of a sudden it's very difficult to coach in certain circumstances, whether it's to do with age or time in the sport, you know. So maybe that was a benefit of having these rookies, especially when you were starting out.
That was a major factor in the decision. I knew that like if I got 5 fresh rookies, like I would be able to like fully teach them the game the way I wanted them to play it. Not a lot of resistance, and then when they're younger, like the guys, I did a lot of screening too. Like when I screened my players, like I had to make sure they were a cultural fit. There was like a few players, like one player who I will not name. Like when I did his interview, he's like Mr. Cho. He called me Mr. Cho, and immediately I'm like, you're out.
Really?
He would, yeah, it was just like it's too cold. Like he was just too formal with everything.
Okay.
Like I just felt really uncomfortable, and like if we're gonna live together, I gotta coach you, and like we gotta enjoy working with each other, and that's the environment I wanted to make, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So working with these guys, Yeah, in NA, I went for the rookies because I knew they'd be really easy to teach, and I was confident I could teach a group of rookies to compete with some of the vets, and I knew that they would be like the amount of improvement was like really rapid for us. We ended up the first play. Okay, we had one veteran player. We had Mickey. We made first in the regular season, and then we lost in playoffs, so we were top 4. And then second split, we were second, but we had a rookie mid laner. We replaced, or Mickey went to GGS, so he promoted, and then we had a new player come in. It was pretty much five rookies. Our average age was like 20, and then we made second in the regular season, and then we lost again in semis, so we were top 4 again.
Interesting. And I guess one of the things is, from someone who's been NA, I guess you grew up in America and things like that as well.
I grew up in Canada.
Okay, grew up in Canada. So being in that sort of that end of the world, that region, how are you coping now being, I presume you're in London, in one of the XL places? How are you coping with that sort of change from going to NA to EU, just from like a lifestyle standpoint?
Lifestyle standpoint, it's difficult. Like all my friends are back there. Like even regardless of like Vancouver, Canada, or LA, like I had a lot of friends there. It's not too bad. Like I still talk to them online. Just how technology has progressed.
Yeah, of course.
Food is a bit difficult here. Where I grew up, there was like there was a lot of Asian food. And LA had just like really, really good food all around. And London, unfortunately, does not have it's not as great. But I've learned like it's manageable. I like the players too here.
Amazing. And I guess that sort of leads us on nicely to the topics and some of the discussion for today. Some of the players that you've been I was going to say dealing with, but that doesn't really sound right. Coaching for this split.
Just dealing with.
And the first topic that I really wanted to touch on, obviously you've been at XL now for this split, and you've had a very successful split in the UKLC, and now you've moved on to EU Masters, and EU Masters has been going really well. I want to park EU Masters for 2 minutes and just talk about the roster a little bit, because this is something that's really interesting to me, and the interesting part of it is to do with the squad rotations. Now, from a coach's standpoint, this is why this really stands out. In the UK split, I believe, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you had 8 different players playing, obviously not all at the same time, but there was 8 different names. So there was Exile, there was Special, and then there was the bot lane, and then obviously the top side, but you had Hyanan and Kasing.
My bot lane, I don't think they ever played, did I have Jessica and Mystiques 1 week? No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I only had 6 players. The only by the time, because UKLC had such a late start, by the time we started, Hyanan was decided to be my Hyanan and Kasing was it was agreed upon that they would be our bot lane.
Sure. Okay, so you had the squad rotations around the mid lane especially, and maybe leading up to it you weren't entirely sure. But in terms of these squad rotations, there are generally 2 opinions on this, right? And one opinion is that subs don't work in esports, in League of Legends, as it can stunt synergy, for example. And another is that it might help with motivation. It's that sort of traditional sports thing where you have someone like nipping at the toes trying to get their space, and help with pushing them to be their best. Now, this rotational period has now been shored up a little bit as you're coming into EU Masters. But with these squad rotations, maybe just your take on it, I'd love to hear that. But in terms of dealing with the mid lane squad rotation as well, how's that been?
It's been fine. Going into the split, we were originally using Special, and there was some, Fabi was just a sub, and he was just kind of relaxing. And then at one point when LEC kind of turned sour, things got bad, we decided that okay, we'll be okay in UKLC, we didn't really feel like any other team could really threaten us. We'll be okay, let's send Special to help the LEC team, because they decided to move permanently do less trips back and forth between Berlin and London. So we just were okay, maybe maybe Special might be their 6th man. He can also he also gave really good input on how the team works, or feedback during review. So we're okay, we'll be okay. Our LEC team looks like they have a shot at playoffs too. There was a point where it looked really hopeful, and we're okay, Special, you go help them out, and then let's see what you can do. Maybe you'll play, maybe you'll sub in for them. I don't know, but we felt like he would, as an org, we thought he'd be it'd be good for him,
a good fit,
or good for us to have Special there. And then by the time we got Special back, it was we're pretty far in the season, and we had the UKLC finals, and we're okay, let's do the finals with Exile and see how that goes. And we did the thing with Exile, and then unfortunately it didn't go so well. And then right after we're like, okay, let's start scrimming with both of them again, and we did that, and we decided that it'd be better to go special for the majority of the games right now.
Okay, amazing.
In terms of substitutions, it's a iffy topic. I think a lot of teams have tried to promote the 10-man roster and all that. There's mixed opinions on it for sure. Like in traditional sports, you need substitutions. You know, you can't have a player play like 48. Like if it's like basketball, it's like 48 minutes. Like those, you just can't unless they're like LeBron James or something. You know, and like it like the wear and tear on that guy's body is just crazy, right? Esports isn't really like that, or at least like League of Legends, you know, for the most part. There can be a point where mid lane substitutions can be like good, like depending on the game or like maybe a champion pool difference kind of thing. Could even be in mental edge, like that thing actually works, but I don't think esports at that point yet. But for us, it was just we just chose the better player we believed at the time.
Yeah, and I mean the argument for esports is clear that it's just like in traditional sports you have physical exhaustion, and that's the thing, like you run so much that you can't run anymore. In esports, and there's the, you know, I don't know if you've seen that new LPL documentary that Nike did with them. It was with Uzi and a couple of other players talking about their sort of physical ailments and how his arms are the arms of a 50-year-old and he's only 20 and things like that.
Oh yeah,
there is that, which was a really interesting documentary. If anyone hasn't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. But yeah, there's no physical exhaustion in esports, only mental. So I totally get where you're coming from. But yeah,
I also don't agree with the full physical exhaustion part, like the whole like shoulders and stuff like that, because there's a lot of things like an individual can do to like prevent that, and it really isn't that hard. Like I'm gonna be honest, I think like Uzi's like, oh, I sit on my chair all day. I'm like, you could easily just die and just stand up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it really is that easy, you know. Like you're done a game, just stand up, or like, you know, you're in queue, just stand up and get some water. So like little tricks I do is like I'm always just getting up and down.
Yeah, for sure.
And then like you could just do your stretches. Like stretches are pretty easy to do, but people are just too lazy to do them. And not to call Uzi lazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he, you know, avoided stretches.
Yeah, for
stuff
sure.
like that.
And in that documentary as well, you could see them like they hadn't stepped foot in a gym for years or hadn't exercised for years and things like that. And he was in like a press up position and he couldn't hold it for more than like 3 seconds. So maybe that shows exactly what you're saying as well.
Yeah. So I don't fully buy it and say like there's a too big of a physical exhaustion component, because there's so many things people can do about it, and just people aren't willing to do it.
Interesting. And one of the things that has been really, really interesting, and from a spectator as well, this has been one of the greatest things to watch in the UKLC, was XL commonly got referred to as flexcel. And obviously due to the incredible ability that you as a team had to moving picks around. Just ridiculous draft flexibility where you would see all sorts of different picks going in all sorts of different lanes. And for you as a coach, this must be wonderful. This is a presumption. It must be wonderful for you to play around with this in the regular split. And we can see so much flexing that's actually continued into EU Masters, the likes of Syndra, Tristana, Pantheon, Cassiopeia. A lot of people don't understand how debilitating it truly is when you're in the draft phase, when you have no idea where certain picks are going. Especially when I know there was a time where XL, I think it was the first day of the regular season, had literally five flex picks in the UKLC.
I don't remember.
The first question, therefore, is how much of a strength is this for you to utilise? And are you planning on continuing to do so?
I mean, the main strength is obviously, as you said, like people don't know how to expect it. The weakness is like everyone's got to learn a new role. So for us, like what started is like I think it's good at least to practice, because I think like playing 6 games, let's say 5 games a day in your traditional role, there's got to like everyone's done that. It's kind of boring. So what we do is like we just change it up just for the sake of like people learning like other roles and stuff like that. I think it's important that like everyone like learns more. That like a lot of players just want to learn. Okay, I want to do what? I just want to know how to play ADC and just ADC. I think it's important. Like a lot of my ADC players are, hey, you should queue up support sometimes in solo queue. They're like, why? I'm like, oh, if you queue up support, you're gonna learn like how to ward better and like know what the support wants to do. So you understand the like, you get a bigger like wider image of like how to play the game. So that was like important for us. So that's kind of how it started, and then it was just like some harder champions to pick up, like for example Yasuo, right? We thought it would just be easy, like hey, pretty simple, just throw Yasuo bot, like we like that. We're like, okay, well now we need trying to play something mid. And I'm like, oh, Corky's a marksman. It's pretty easy to play, and it's a meta right now. So why not try that? We've done that draft many times.
Yeah, and the interesting thing as well was you weren't just sort of flexing, as you mentioned there, you weren't just flexing champions. It wasn't just like, oh, we'll put Tristan atop this game, or we'll put Cassiopeia top. You were also just flexing like players. So Hyanon would be mid one game on Karthus, I remember. And there was
he was top Karthus. We just wanted to keep things like, it started kind of in practice because like it kept the game interesting, you know. We're here for like 10 plus weeks just scrimming every day. Like we gotta do something to keep it interesting, and some teams like to like go crazy and run it down. Some scrims we like to just change up the roles and just like have more meaningful discussions on like how to play the game. Like I noticed when we started running Sendo bot, like he learned a lot about the game, about like how like he wanted to progress the game and how as a team we wanted to progress the game, and trying to learn like how like the top side of the map can affect his side of the map a bit better. So there was value in that.
And you hear this often with G2, the LEC team, that teams don't want to scrim G2 for several reasons. One is because it's a coin flip of a game sometimes, and it could just be that caps go 0-10. This is all hearsay. This is what I've heard on podcasts and things like that. Obviously, I don't know for a fact. The other thing is that games are just like, it could be over, it might not be over, and then they troll a little bit as well. When you were scrimming, did you ever find that teams were like, why are they doing this? This is bad practice for me. I don't want to scrim this team anymore. Or was it always this, because you found it so interesting, games were always competitive because of that?
For our scrims, most of the time our scrims are competitive. I'd say like even especially in Europe, like a lot of teams have been doing this, like flexing players differently. Like we probably like pushed the limit pretty hard on that, but like I've seen a lot of teams do it. Like even in our last game, or one of our last games, against Aces Rog, they changed their mid and their mid and top swap lanes, the Victor and Aurelia. So stuff like that. So it's not too uncommon in Europe for this to happen. So I don't think any teams will like refuse it, or I don't believe any team flat out refused to scrim us because of this.
Sure, interesting. And I guess like one of the big things as well with this sort of flexing is, I don't know if this is a choice for teams or it's something that they just simply can't do, but many teams don't go down that route of flexing as much as you guys do. So I guess the first part of the question is, why are you able to do this? Why are you able to adopt this playstyle? How is it possible that you guys can do this? Sheer talent? Is it a choice? Maybe it was just the hours that you were saying that was put into the practice of going into different roles.
I think first it's the raw mechanical skill. So Sendo Special and Hyanon are just really good mechanically, so they can play out stuff, and they have a lot of experience under their belt. Like even Sendo, who's one of my rookies, he's been playing this game for a long time, right? So a lot of them have like a lot of experience, mostly just experience, I'd say, and just like broader game knowledge. Like they understand how things are done. The only players that we haven't flexed are our jungler and our support, but they know how to they're the main ones who facilitate our like game anyways. So. They all the other carries players' job is like last hit for a while and then like do what they're told, to progress the game.
Yeah, for sure. So you said there, and we'll touch on this a little bit later in terms of what it's like. But when you were coming into this team, what was it like in terms of practice? Now you said that you guys would move around, you would try and keep the game as interesting as possible. You've obviously got a team of people that have been playing for an awful lot of time. These aren't new players to the game. Like even your rookies, like Sendo's been around for I presume couple of years maybe.
Oh, he's been here for a couple of years. Like not on XL, but he's been playing competitively for a while now too.
So for you coming into this team, how was that from a coaching point of view in terms of what were you aiming for practice? What were you seeing? Sorry,
you cut out a little bit.
Yeah. What were you sort of when you were coming into this team as a coach? What were your aims for practice? Did you have certain things? Was it just to keep the game fresh and then let them sort of out and off the leash when it came to competitive games?
Well, in spring, let's say summer. Let's start with summer, because spring I came in the middle and I just tried to like patch things up, but we weren't able to pick it up together in time because I came in pretty late. Sure. So starting the summer, it was like the first thing is like we scrum a bit. We gotta find team identity and figure out like how are we gonna play as a team, like who are the major voices, like what we want to do, how we want to progress the game. So figure out team identity first, and then second is like we need to figure out like the meta, like our take on the meta, like what's strong, and then third is just like refining like what's strong, like playing team comps. I think is a really big part of what we want to do. So we're all about like I mean, at the start it was just figure out our take on the meta, what we're good at, and use that.
Interesting, because despite all this flexing, we have seen what would be considered pretty standard League of Legends from XL recently. The team comps like Silas, Jarvan, LeBlanc, Xayah, Thresh. That was versus Vitality B. Was it important for you guys to show that you can play standard League, or was this simply just like the best comp at the time? You know,
best comp at the time. It was just the best comp at the time, and actually some of the teams in play-ins knew how to handle flexes better than the teams we played in UKLC. Because while we're in UKLC, we were actually scrimming a lot of these play-in teams.
Okay.
So a lot of them have come closer to solving
because they've seen it. Sure.
They've seen it. We tested on these guys all the time, right? So that's Vitality B had a good idea of all the flexes we did.
Interesting.
So they knew how to and we've lost a few scrims, so we knew that okay, these UKLC teams everyone except for Fnatic would be able to deal with it. Would not be able to deal with it just because simply our team we're just a lot better, you know. And from our games, okay, no one's remotely close to solving how to deal with this. Whereas we look at some of these teams like Vitality, and they did find solutions. Credit to them, they found solutions to some of our flexes and stuff. And they're okay, they use these certain champions and played this certain style, and then we're okay. Then we look back at the UKLC team we're facing. It's can they do either of these? Can they play these champions, and can they play this style? And we're no.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, of course. And I guess part of it just comes from the element of surprise. Now, if this sort of flexing culture that you guys have, and that maybe other teams have in scrims as well, is obviously it's a higher level of play than potentially what would be going on in the UKLC. Maybe because I know when I was watching the games, I was like, where's that Yasuo going the first time? Because I'm used to Yasuo not being in the game, let alone being in bot lane, you know? So maybe it was that surprise element in the UKLC as well as a obvious class difference in terms of players and things like that.
Yeah.
And the teams like Vitality weren't surprised by this, and therefore have time to come up with stuff, you know.
I mean, most for example, the Yasuo bot thing, a lot of these teams have seen it.
Yeah.
A lot of the EU Master teams have seen it. We scrimmed against them. They're more prepared for it than any UKLC team.
Makes sense.
It's not a surprise to them.
Yeah.
If we do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So just the example of the Vitality B one, just the best team comp at the time, then, right?
For sure.
Interesting. And even still, maybe there was you've passed on team comps like this before. Is it, you've passed on team comps that you could have had this team comp, I'm sure. Was Vitality a bit more of a challenge, you think?
Sorry, I don't fully understand the question. Can you repeat it?
So this team comp that you've had, I'm sure at some point you could have taken in a previous game, right? Whether it was in UKLC or whether it was game one of the EU Masters, you know?
It was a new patch as well, so
I see.
Let me find out what. Let's use Vitality for example. Picks and bans against Vitality.
So the one that I'm referring to is the Silas, the Jarvan, the LeBlanc, the Xayah, the Thresh that you guys picked.
Oh, this. It was a bit different in UKLC, I think, just because Akali was a big factor in the draft, which was not as big of a factor in UKLC, I think.
Sure.
The meta just shifted, so
yeah.
I don't think we necessarily pass on it in UKLC. It's just we always pick for what we think is best at the time.
Of course. Yeah, makes sense. And one thing that we've touched on a couple of times during the podcast so far is veterans versus rookies, right? When you came into TL, you wanted a team of rookies. Sorry. Now this XL team has Hjarnan, who previously, it's this huge thing, was at World semi-finals some 8 to 10 months ago, something like that. Kasing, who had been in and around the LEC and LCS for an awful lot of time, and at Worlds as well. Special, who last split was on the LEC stage. And then Sendo and Taxa, who aren't exactly new to the scene either. They've been, as we've said, on XL for several splits and have been playing League for a lot longer than that. Clearly, this is a team of what would be considered veterans, right? And obviously, you've now been coaching for a while, as we've touched on with C9, TL, Echo Fox. How's it been dealing with this team of veterans? And was this your first foray into real veterancy in terms of coaching?
No, other veterans I deal with, like on Echo Fox, like I would say Gate was a veteran.
Yes.
Lupro was a veteran. Froggen was a veteran.
You were around that sort of time. Interesting.
Yeah. Keith was kind of considered a rookie. Acadian was considered a rookie, but we had a lot of veterans on that squad, I would say.
Sure.
So for this team in particular, first, like the original plan was we were probably going to use Special. Special I would still consider a rookie. He's still like the NA and EU definition of a rookie is a bit different, I think.
Yeah.
Like an NA rookie would be like 17, scouting, fresh out of scouting grounds, picked up on the academy team. Like an EU rookie's still been around for like several years, I think. Like Mystique's, Jeskla were kind of considered our rookies. You know, our rookies are, I guess, like players who haven't really like been spent a full year or whatever in LEC.
Yeah.
Jeskla, Mystique's, Special, and Taxer, even Senda, like all 5 of them have not touched really like been through the whole LEC cycle. You know.
Yeah.
So I consider all 5 of them rookies, but their game knowledge is pretty up there still. Coming into this group, I didn't think I met too much resistance. I was pretty comfortable working with them. I think just past experience, my past experience helped me a lot. Like, if this was my first team, I'd have a lot of trouble like getting them to do what I want and all that stuff. But this is like my 3rd, 4th, 5th team, so I know what to do with them.
And in terms of watching them play and their play style, is that something that you talked about trying to find a team identity? Is that something that came very naturally, or it was like, this is what our team identity is going to be, go execute on it?
No, we just started playing scrims, and then like there was some other teams that started doing flexes, and then we're like, hey, Special, do you want to play like Yasuo bot? It's like, yeah,
I'm in.
So we tried, and I'm like, hey, this is really good, and then like we kept doing it a bit more. It's like, what else can we swap around? And then we saw a team did Cassio bot, and we're like, Sendo's like, I could play bot too, and then Sean's like, he's like, yeah, I could give Stinch Top a try. Let's try that. That's kind of how like we take inspiration from other teams too. Like, see what they do. We're not completely original. Like we take ideas and stuff, and then we just keep trying it and see how that goes.
I guess it's quite an interesting bunch of guys as well from personality point of view as well. We've seen Kasing has done loads of like podcasty things with the LEC stuff, and it seems like a fun sort of environment to be around from what I can see.
Oh yeah, it's a great group of guys I'm working with. I love working with them.
Amazing. Because obviously, as we've said now, you've done incredibly well at EU Masters. Maybe to some people, surprisingly so. Obviously, not coming in as the first seed for the UKLC. Unfortunately, that went to Fnatic. But maybe you surprised some people. So, as I said, you guys have been killing it in EU Masters and have actually set the record for the first ever UK team to make it out of play-ins.
I think it's the only team to ever 6-0 play-ins as well, or go perfect.
Yeah, an even better record, one that I didn't even know. So both an incredible achievement, you know. And coming into EU Masters, you obviously have a very strong roster, but were you expecting this level of dominance, you know?
In the play-ins?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Really?
No. We knew it'd be up in the air, but like we thought it'd be close, you know. We scrimmed some teams, like they're pretty good. Surprisingly, okay, so looking at the teams, like I thought Rogue would do a lot better. I thought they would be pretty up there. Origin was kind of 50-50. I actually thought we would do fine against Vitality based on scrims. Like for most of the teams, I thought like Big and Rogue were actually the 2 that came out. You know, I thought they were the like next 2 teams that we'd have to contend with, and it looked like a tough group. You know. Yeah.
Is the level of play to the standard you thought it would be, or because your average game time was something like 26 minutes or something crazy like that as well? Come the end of day 2 or day 3 on the broadcast, the way that their narrative for it was that you guys are just like not only winning, but you're dominating. Like this is 23, 24, 25, 26 minutes, something like that. So was the level of play to the standard that you expected it to be alongside that? Obviously you dominated, but
what was the level of play? Like the other teams?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they played like kind of close to the level, really. The only one that I thought kind of like underperformed in group stages was Big.
Yeah.
The rest I thought they kind of played to their level, but like we knew this was our level. Not 100% sure what to expect because we haven't played on stage with Special in a while, but like I knew if we play our game, like we'd be in control. Like we Like every early game was kind of shaky, but then like mid game we knew exactly what we wanted to do, and like even throughout the tournament we improved on like how we wanted to like play the mid game out.
Interesting. So what are you expecting out of UK generally? Obviously Fnatic and XL, you guys did lose out in the finals to Fnatic.
Both of us will make top 4, I think.
Both make top 4, and
So.
in the grand
unless we
scheme,
have to eliminate from each other. Like my prediction is big LDLC, Fnatic, us, and maybe Devils one up there.
Okay, so the Devils one obviously from Poland, is that right?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on them.
Okay, interesting.
But, let me see. Let me try to look at the teams again.
Yeah.
I know I talked to someone about it. Like, Mouse is no. I think Mouse, LDLC, Fnatic, Excel, and Big. I think those are the 5 strongest teams. And then I think honorable mention would be like Devils one.
Okay, so Mouse just tipped Devils one out of the scale. Interesting. That's a big prediction as well. You're going to finish both top 4. Who's going to be in the final versus XL then? Because obviously you guys are going to make it to the final, right?
I mean, it depends. LDLC or Fnatic. It'll be LDLC or Fnatic, I think.
Okay.
Those 2 teams are just really, really good.
Interesting. LDLC were the team that have obviously French team who had Steelback, right? That was their support now.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Amazing. That's really, really interesting, and I like the confidence. Whilst it's not like massively big-headed, like we're just going to take it all. I appreciate I appreciate the confidence as well. So we're coming to pretty much a close on all of the questions that I had for you today. So there is one mainstay question I ask everyone that comes onto the podcast,
sure.
And it is the last question. So the question is this: what is one thing that you can teach myself or the viewers from your world? Now, this can be absolutely anything. Previously, there had been advice on how to get into esports, there had been book recommendations, there had been little game tips like stretching and things like that. So what is one thing from your world that you can teach us?
Oof, let me think about this one.
Yeah, for sure. As I say, there'd been one of the interesting ones has been like a famous quote that someone really enjoyed. How to better your practice in League of Legends, how to better your mechanics over time. Obviously, these are things that coaches can generally speak to, but whatever sort of springs to mind, it can be anything. We even had someone speaking Polish.
I think the biggest thing would be just like in anything I do is just to avoid a lot of stress and just to actually get better at something, regardless of what it was. Is just focus on what you can do, and live with what you can't do.
Yeah, and I guess that's.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah, focusing on the things that you can control, right?
Yeah, focus on what you can control. That's it for me, and that's it.
Perfect. No, that's perfect. I guess that sort of goes generally in life as well as like if you're taking this into solo queue as well. Is like.
Oh, you totally just cut out there. Actually, there was one quote. Not really. Flash.
For the Flash, the TV series.
Oh, it was from the movie. Hold on, the Flash was a movie. Movies. Let me get this for you.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
It was what was it? This one. Who was it? Was it?
Is there a Flash movie? I didn't even realize they'd made a movie.
Oh, there's tons. Flashpoint Paradox, Nora Allen quote.
Oh wow.
When she said that quote, I was like, that really spoke to me.
Interesting.
Accept the things you cannot change. Have the courage to change the things you can, and have the wisdom to know the difference.
Wow. I like that.
That was a big one.
Yeah, that is.
I was watching it, yeah, and like these are the animated DC movies.
Okay.
They're really funny, and like these animated DC ones, they're a lot gorier than that. Like, more brutal, like people die and stuff in these ones, not like the Marvel movies. So it gets dark, but like I heard that quote, I'm like, oh, that really spoke to me.
Yeah, and I guess it ties in previously to what you were saying about controlling the controllables and focus on that sort of stuff as well.
I don't stress out, like, there's a lot of times, like, we stress about, like, I stress about, oh, what if the other team does something, like, okay, this is what we can do, let's not overthink it.
Really interesting. I like that a lot. I think that's definitely a good one that people can take into their life as well. So, that has summed up all the questions for today. And firstly, I know that you are super busy, obviously just coming out of the back of EU Masters, waiting for the group stages to now commence in a couple of days. So I really appreciate you giving up your time, and especially late at night as well. So thank you so much for coming onto the show. If people want to follow you, find you, any content or anything like that, where is the best place for people to get in contact?
Twitter or Twitch TV. Both of them are just Tim Kiro.
Awesome.
At Tim Kiro.
Great. So both, if anyone is watching this and wants to do so, both of the links will be in the description below. Again, Tim, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you giving the takes and things like that as well. It's been a really interesting one to listen to, and I hope everyone else at home has listened to this and had the same interest that I have. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everyone listening to the podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and we will catch you on the